Welcome to today's sprint. This is shaping up to be another fantastic weekend. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks for today's sprint. World champion Max Verstappen starts from pole position, with Charles Leclerc alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Perez, Russell, Carlos Sainz and Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, Massa, Ace and Lando Norris, Ocon, Ricciardo, Kevin Magnussen and Albon, Bottas, Gasly, Mick Schumacher and Sebastian Vettel, Joe, Stroll, Tsunoda and Nicholas Latifi. Which of these drivers will get pole position today? We'll soon find out.
Okay, this is our engine supplier's home Grand Prix, so let's give them the race work. Is 2.2 seconds. DRS is being enabled this lap. We can use DRS when you're within 1 second of the car ahead and in the DRS zone. 1 minute 21.6. The difference is 7.9 seconds. The last lap time was a 1:20.9. You sat in P8, well done. That's Felipe ahead of you now. Okay, the gap is less than a second. They're on fresh mediums. Alonso behind you now. Less than a second separates you. They're on fresh mediums. Our gap to first place is 9.0 seconds. Pit strategy complete. See these tyres through to the end now. Right, 15 laps still remaining. So the difference is 10.0 seconds. And the time last lap was a 1 minute 20.9. Okay, be aware there's an incident in the next part of the track. No overtaking through the yellow flags. far too aggressive, mate. Clean passes only. We don't want a penalty. Okay, watch your pace. We've been informed the safety car is out. There appears to have been an issue with multiple stock vehicles on the track. Felipe's dropped out of the race. And that's us in 10th position. It's Ricciardo ahead of you. Okay, the gap is less than a second. They're on fresh mediums. Magnussen's behind. Okay, so the gap to the car behind is 1.9 seconds. They're on old mediums. Okay, gap to leader, 10.8 seconds. That was our last stop. No more scheduled pit stops. Let's go. And 11 laps to go. P10, you're currently in P10. Ricciardo ahead. Less than a second separates you. They're on old mediums. Magnussen's behind you. Okay, the gap is less than a second. They're on old mediums. The distance to the leader is 2.6 seconds. Look after these tyres now. You want to finish the race on this compound. Okay, we're into the last 10 laps now. Racing again. The safety car is in this lap. When the field accelerates, remember there's no overtaking until the timing line. Safety car in this lap. second a lap on the car behind. Really good stuff. Okay, you're in ninth position. Ocon is ahead of you. Less than a second separates you. They're on old mediums. Ricardo behind you now. Okay, the gap is less than a second. They're on old mediums. Okay, so gap to the leader is 4.5 seconds. Pit strategy complete. See these tyres through to the end now. And that's 8 laps to go. Good work, great pass. Okay, you're catching the car ahead, but remember, we need to get to the end of the race on these tyres. The car behind started to drop back. There's a gap beginning to form. Let's make the most of it. Just 5 laps of fuel remaining. On the aggression, we need clean overtakes or we'll get a penalty. Okay, clear. gap to the car ahead is 9.0 seconds. End of the race. We'll see you in Parc Fermé.
And now let's take a look at the driver's standings. Well, not the result our points leader would have wanted, but it certainly makes things interesting going forward. Let's move on to the constructors. Ferrari take the lead at the top of the table. Well, that wraps up the sprint. All that remains is the main event. We'll be live and uninterrupted for the Grand Prix tomorrow, so make sure you join us then. Hello there and welcome back to Imola, home circuit of the Scuderia Ferrari. We expect to see a lot of local supporters wearing red today, and they've all turned out for what we're expecting will be a sensational event here at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. One lap of Imola, anti-clockwise of course, unlike most Formula One circuits, will take our drivers round 3.1 miles of track. 19 turns, 9 right-handers and 10 to the left. Drivers will need to be precise at the hairpin at turn 7, given the subsequent uphill section. Without a good exit from that corner, they'll lose a lot of time on that stretch. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position. And it's Charles Leclerc in P2. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Russell, Perez, Carlos Sainz, and Hamilton. Ace, Ricciardo, Ocon, and Kevin Magnussen. Mick Schumacher, Gasly, Fernando Alonso, and Norris. Tsunoda, Bottas, Guan Yu Zhou, and Lance Stroll. Vettel, Latifi, they've taken a grid penalty. Massa and Alex Albon picks up the last spot on the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track. It's race day yet again, and joining me for a chat is Anthony Davidson. And our racers are certainly in for a rough day today. What will you be watching out for as they head into turn 1?
Well, the start of the race is always one of the most nerve-wracking parts. You have to hope that everyone is able to get off to a clean start, and this is possibly the trickiest part of the entire race. So many drivers in such a small space, and finding your braking point into turn 1 as well. It's a testament to the driver's skill that there aren't more incidents.
Okay, now that we've got some good points on the board, let's continue this form and aim for another top 10 finish. Teammate by 3.9 seconds. They're on fresh softs. They're in 18th. Focus now for the rest of the race. seconds. They're on fresh softs. They're in 15th. Time last lap was at 1:24.3. Okay, information on Verstappen. They seem to have an issue. Okay, so we're leading our teammate by 10.0 seconds. Okay, clear. Okay, the officials have deployed the safety car due to multiple cars being stopped on track. Mind your delta. Okay, slow down, slow down. Your delta's negative, which means you're going too fast. Reduce your pace. Okay, you sat in P2. It's Verstappen ahead. Less than a second separates you. Okay, they're on fresh hards. They've got some kind of mechanical problem. Perez behind. Okay, the gap is less than a second. Okay, they're on fresh hards. Gap to your teammate behind is 3.5 seconds. Okay, they're on old softs. They're in 13th place. Your last lap time was a 1 minute 49.6. we're going to be leading the championship. Verstappen's ahead of you, less than a second separates you. Okay, they're on fresh hards. Okay, their tyres are 7 laps old. We think they've got one more stop. They seem to have an issue. And the time last lap was a 1:56.8. You're taking 1.8 seconds out of them each lap. Keep going. Perez is behind you. Okay, the gap is less than a second. Okay, they're on fresh hards. Okay, their tyres are 7 laps old. We think they've got one more stop. Time last lap was a 1:54.5. Safety car in this lap. Safety car in this lap. Let's make sure those tyres are up to temperature. Remember, there's no overtaking until the timing line. Stay in position until the green flags. So we're leading our teammate by 3.9 seconds. Behind is 4.8 seconds. Okay, they're on old softs. They're in 10th place. The last lap time was a 1:25.7. Okay, watch the aggression, please. We don't want to lose places because of the penalty. by 2.3 seconds. Okay, they're on old softs. They're 8th. And the time last lap was a 1 minute 24.5. Approaching the pit window and you're going to be on mediums. Around a second faster than the car ahead. Keep this up. Okay, we want you to pick this lap, so push now, push. Perez ahead, and gap to the car in front is 0.9 seconds. Okay, they're on fresh hards.